All right, man, peace. So I saw a very interesting segment here on the CBS Sunday Morning News pertaining to a father who sought out help in learning fractions and mathematics because he had not learned it for over 30 years, and his son had recently failed a math exam. And he wanted to be able to assist his son, so he was on the train, and one of his fellow train riders was sitting adjacent to him, right next to him, and he asked the fellow passenger if that person could assist him in understanding certain aspects of fractions in math because he wanted to help his son. Well, the co-passenger assisted him, and there just happened to be another passenger sitting across from the both of them who happened to be a so-called black woman. And she liked the fact that this passenger was seeking to help his son in math, so he sought out the help of someone who was sitting next to him on the train. She took a photo of it and decided to put it on one of these social media platforms. And I noticed a lot of different components to this story, but the number one thing that I wanted to bring to brothers' attention is that when we all decide to have children, we have to know why we're having children, especially in a world like this today, where they're trying to hone in on young black men, young so-called black boys especially, and to get them to accept certain new ideologies and philosophies, many of them oftentimes having to do with the denigration of the masculine principle, the denigration and the total destruction of the quote-unquote male patriarchy or male leadership. And I just liked certain aspects of this story here because the so-called black man, who's the father, he showed that he was willing to forgo a lot of his so-called pride and so-called male machismo or what have you, just so that he could make sure that his son was going to be empowered, not only in being able to be proficient in mathematics or fractions, but also certain other little lessons. And also, I'm just going to address other components of this story. So anyway, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
One act of kindness in the form of a math lesson, all while riding on the subway. A father tries to relearn elementary school math with the help of a fellow rider.
CBS 2's Ali Bauman has the heartwarming story of the commuter who really made this train ride count.
Now pay very close attention. One of the anchors stated that it's a quote-unquote heartwarming story. And there's a reason why it's being projected as a quote-unquote heartwarming story.
I'm sitting on the train, just got off of work, tired, stressful.
Denise Wilson was at the end of a long day last week, riding the subway home to Brooklyn, when she overheard two strangers sitting across from her.
He was just telling a guy, I'm in my 40s, and all of this is like new to me, so I gotta relearn this to teach my son because he failed a math test.
Fractions, said the father, who's sitting on the right, flipping through math worksheets in his lap.
When I say I started tearing up, that warmed my heart.
Now, isn't it interesting? She states that the father was seeking help in understanding fractions in math. And because he was asking that question so that he could assist his son, that made her tear up, that warmed her heart. Now, I have to ask this question because this is just how my brain works. Had that man asked her to assist him in mathematics or to help him understand fractions, would that have warmed her heart? Or would she have thought that he was trying to hit on her, or it was supposed to be some cheap come on line and he was another person who was trying to harass her on her way home from work because maybe he was another so-called black man who could not control his sexual urges or his lust? Because that is certainly one of the main forms of propaganda that's being pushed in this society, that the so-called black man cannot control himself and that he's just throwing himself at every so-called black woman that he sees in the street on her way home from work or heading to work in the morning. So it's just very interesting to me that she found it so heartwarming that the so-called black man was seeking help from one of his fellow passengers who happened to be a Caucasian man. Maybe that's truly what warmed her heart, that what was depicted was a Caucasian man and a so-called black man working together. I tell many of you brothers this, and like I always tell you, you're going to find that the things that I inform you of are rock solid. I don't make videos just to bullshit you. You'll see that oftentimes with the liberal black woman, even though she claims to be pro-blackity black, and as you can see the sister here, very attractive, nice skin, even though she looks like she drew on her eyebrows with a pair of extra thick Sharpies, it is what it is. She seems to have been entranced by the fact that the so-called black man was looking for help and there was a so-called Caucasian man who was assisting him. And I guarantee you that had he been sitting on the train and he looked over to his right and asked for help in learning fractions from another so-called black man or another so-called black woman, it most likely would not have moved her heart so much, and I guarantee you it would not have made the CBS Morning News. One of the main reasons why it made the news broadcast was because it depicted all of the stereotypical societal roles as they want to project them, that being so-called black men being vulnerable and being intellectually inefficient, the Caucasian man as being the informer, and the so-called liberal black woman as the mouthpiece to the world for the message that this society wants to push, that is so-called black men coming together with the so-called Caucasian under a certain paradigm, that being perpetual student. I promise you that if it had been another so-called black person that was assisting him in learning fractions or math on the train, number one, she would not have been as moved as she was. Number two, there's no way that it would have made the CBS Morning News. Oftentimes in these stories, there are different levels to the messages that they're trying to promote. I'm not saying that this sister here had any insidious motives. No, not at all. Oftentimes, the way that we think is based off of subconscious programming. But once again, had that been a so-called black person or another person of color who was assisting that brother with learning fractions so that he could inform his son and raise his son's mental acuity up, his mathematical proficiency up, it would not have made the news.
And I snapped a picture.
She posted it to Facebook, writing, "The stranger on the left responded, 'I used to be a math teacher,' then started quizzing the father with his folder. Everything he got wrong or was confused about, he broke it down and corrected him."
And once again, kudos to the brother here for having the humility to seek help so that he could help his son. That's what truly matters. Because that's why I opened up this video by saying that, when we decide to have children, we have to know why we want to have them. So many people have children to make themselves happy because they get to a certain age and they realize that most of the people that they come across in life don't truly love them. And many times people don't know how to love in this society. So they go out and they have children, almost like someone that would buy a pet, because they know that the child is going to love them irregardless of their personality defects, so on and so forth. And that's the wrong reason to have a child. You have to have a child because of what you already have planned for the child, that you're going to raise them up to the best of your ability, that you have the resources to make sure that the child has a great childhood, so on and so forth. And that has nothing to do with this brother right here. I'm just making that as an overall generic statement. Because once again, it takes a great deal of humility and wherewithal for you to be a father and know that you can't quite remember what you were taught in high school about fractions or mathematics, and to seek help, not for yourself, but for your son or for your daughter or for whoever. So once again, great job by this brother right here.
It's been around 30 years, I would say, since I did fractions.
Corey Simmons admits he's never been much of a math student, but once Corey Jr. started struggling in 3rd grade, it was time to revisit some old lessons.
It doesn't matter if you fail, it's what you do after you fail.
For the most part, I agree with what the brother stated right there. The only thing that I would change is, instead of saying that when we fail, we get back up, I would say when we fall, we get back up. Because failure is just when you fall down and you don't get back up. We're all going to hit low points in our life. We just have to deal with it, man. That's a part of life. It tells you that in Proverbs, the 24th chapter and the 16th verse. A righteous man falleth 7 times, but you have to get back up. That's all life is about. There's relationships that are not going to go your way. You're going to get fired from your job. Your relatives may pass on. You have to keep moving forward. That's all life is about. Like Rocky stated in Rocky 6. He said you got to keep moving forward. That's one of the great speeches that I can remember in recent cinematic history. That speech that he gave to his son.
The men eventually got off at different subway stops. Simmons told us, between all the numbers, he never caught the math tutor's name. Neither did Wilson, even though her post has since been shared more than 40,000 times.
It was just one person helping another.
Now look at this. This sister has been brought to tears by what she saw. Hopefully, she applies that to her own life. Because many times, many of the liberal black women have become so unapproachable because of the force field that they put up around themselves due to accepting this hardcore form of feminism and female hate, where they want to create their own demographic within the so-called black race of so-called black women. And now with this whole Khalees and Nas situation, Khalees has basically declared war on male hegemony and using Nas as the initial person that she wants to have destroyed. She wants to join the league with the hashtag #MeToo movement, so on and so forth. Many of the sisters, unfortunately, believe that the so-called black man is their enemy. And a lot of that is because many brothers don't understand the importance of making sure that they impregnate the right woman. They impregnate the wrong woman, the situation declines rapidly, and then the children are left without the father because of whatever level of discord there is between him and the child. That's why, once again, brothers, before you have a child, man, don't impregnate a chick because you think that's going to make her stay. Don't impregnate the woman because you think that's going to make her conduct herself like she did when you first met her. Once she starts to show who she really is, she's not going to go back to that person that you initially met. But just getting back to the focus of this story right here, look at how emotionally moved she was by the situation between the father and that man on the train. And without a doubt in my mind, one of the main reasons for that is because it was a Caucasian man who was helping the so-called black man. Many of these so-called pro-black women are liberal black, and they like to see the coming together of the Caucasian and the so-called black man. Why is that? Because once again, the liberal black female understands that she's empowered by the liberal Caucasian man. So no matter how blackety black she acts, she's always going to have a little bit of an eye on the liberal Caucasian male and liberal Caucasian female, because that's her sister in the struggle, quote unquote, despite the fact that many of them will try to deny that it is the case. And also the liberal Caucasian male is the one who empowers them and gives them the ability to denigrate the so-called black man. Once again, it would have been a very interesting case study to see what would have happened had that brother decided to approach her to assist him with mathematics as opposed to the Caucasian man. Or maybe he was just going through the folder trying to figure out certain aspects of fractions, and the Caucasian man leaned over and said, "Hey, I used to be a math teacher. Do you need any help?" Who knows how it started? I just know that I seriously doubt that if the brother approached the sister right here and asked her for help, if she would have been as open and as moved. But who knows?
And I thought that was like beautiful.
As for the fractions,
We halfway there, but I wouldn't say we mastered the whole fraction thing yet.
That's okay, brother. Keep working.
but maybe math was the second most important lesson Simmons brought home from his train ride.
You need help sometimes.
Absolutely. We all need help sometimes. We all need help a lot of times.
And you shouldn't want to bite your tongue to not ask for the help. So don't feel shy to ask someone for help. It's okay.
That's a great lesson. And hopefully, if that young man needs help and he goes to someone and asks them for help, they won't look at it as a sign of vulnerability. They won't look at it as, oh, I could take advantage of this dude, because that happens way too much in this society, especially amongst our people. And it's a sign of the lack of culture that we have. Oftentimes, our people are scared to admit when they need help. They're scared to admit when they're in a low place because they feel like they can't count on someone else of their own so-called race, because many of our people look at being in a prone position as being vulnerable, as opposed to saying, this is an opportunity for me to assist this person with a word that they can use to galvanize themselves. Because, look, we all know 90% of the time when anyone needs assistance, it's normally monetary. If you can't help them in a monetary fashion, at least you can help them with a good word. Be positive. Positive energy propagates just like everything else.
A lesson Junior already seems to have a good grasp on, thanks to Dad. Allie Bauman, CBS 2 News.
So good for that brother right there. He's doing a great job, at least from what I see here in this little segment.
Sometimes you're in the right place at the right time. You never know why. And this is a good example of
Definitely.
that. That father says he's still hoping someone will recognize that other man in the photo so he can thank him properly again.
I think we're going to have a wonderful follow-up.
I
on
hope
this story.
so.
Oh, I bet you guys are going to have a quote-unquote wonderful follow-up. And I'm sure that you're going to do whatever you can to pursue that follow-up, because you have to perpetuate the assigned societal roles of the Caucasian man as instructor, informer, and enlightener, and the so-called black man as the perpetual student. We all know what that's really about. But that's just a sub-level to this story. The main issue is the fact that that father, the so-called black man, showed a great deal of humility to himself and love for his son by deciding that it was more important for himself that he educate himself so that he could empower his son than being concerned with who was going to look at him as weak or what have you because he asked for help. So great for him.
And everything that Dad said, I was like, I want to write that down. It's so good.
Good lessons for kids and adults.
Oh, please. You just want some Mandingo. But anyway, that's it on this segment right here. I thought that it was a very good story, but it also showed a lot of different subliminal aspects of this society that brothers should be aware of. But anyway, peace.